In today's video, let's talk about how your Steam Deck and Steam Machine got access to way more games. This is a massive upgrade. How's it going? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about Steam hardware. And thank you, as usual, for joining us on our weekly not podcast. That's totally a podcast where we break down the latest SteamOS, Steam Machine, and Steam hardware in general news. How you doing, Ray?
I'm doing well. I had myself a good hearty 7-Eleven breakfast this morning. The trifecta of a banana, a 7-Eleven glazed donut, and also a sausage biscuit. And don't forget that $1 iced coffee that I got too. This is not sponsored, by the way. This is my actual life. So yeah,
dude,
that's awesome.
I wish 7-Eleven would sponsor us. I had a white Monster, some strawberries, and some raspberries. So pretty middle of the road in terms of healthy breakfast. The white Monster is sugar-free, which I guess you could say is even more unhealthy, but I'm feeling energized. I'm excited. I want to point everyone to my channel, Jimmy Champagne, before we get into the news, because I'm editing a video right now where I went through all 13 Halloween movies and picked out costumes, executions, and levels I'd like to see make their way into Halloween the game. But with that intro out of the way, let's get into the first news story here and talk about how something I never thought would happen is happening, because Heroic Game Launcher, which I think is like a collective of fans, like I don't think they're a corporation or anything because everything they make is free. Regardless, they're actually working on bringing support to Xbox apps for SteamOS and Linux as a whole. So like your Game Pass games, the games that have Play Anywhere where you buy them on Xbox digitally, you get a free PC copy. If this all goes well, and it seems like it's already going well, they'll be able to use Proton or some version of it to play these games on Steam Machine, Steam Deck, and any Linux PC, which is insane. I don't know how they're doing this or how long it's going to take, but just the fact that it's happening is excellent, because there are a lot of Xbox games like Doom the Dark Ages or Ninja Gaiden 4, for example, where I have a save that's like halfway done on my Xbox Series X, and if I rebought it on Steam, I can't continue forward with that save, and that's kind of a bummer. So having this compatibility opened up, that has real utility for me, because as much as I hate using it, I do use my Windows PC and my Xbox Series X, which I don't hate using from time to time. What do you think about this, Ray? This is kind of crazy.
I mean, it's really cool. One of the things that I was excited about for Project Helix, the next gen Xbox, was this idea of this one box that can play any game that I wanted. My Xbox games, games from my Steam library, and by extension, PlayStation games that were also published on Steam. Of course, that idea has kind of sputtered out in recent months with all the changes happening at Xbox, lots of things up in the air with Project Helix. But now we're kind of looking at the Steam Machine and the Steam Deck as these all-in-one devices. I mean, it's coming on the heels of what that emulator story that was going around for PlayStation 5 games as well. It's not nearly as good. I think it was running at like less than a frame per second for some of those PS5 games.
They got Astrobot up and running on that, dude. Like, that's crazy. They've been working on that for like a month, and they already got into the character creator in Demon's Souls, and they have Astrobot like playable. So yeah, I don't know. When you piss off the emulator creators, they produce some good stuff very quickly, and they were pissed about physical games going away. So that could be a future for the Steam Machine, Steam Deck, and everything else as well.
Now the Steam Deck and the Steam Machine are now taking that spot as these consoles that have a lot of utility. You know, they're much more than SteamOS and your Steam games. No, you can actually, again, use them as proper Linux-powered PCs and emulate all sorts of stuff. So yeah, that's going to open up a lot of new possibilities for people who have decided to invest in this console and really want to mess around with it.
Yeah, the biggest bummer for me, which you just reminded me of, is on PC, so on Steam. I have access to Spider-Man Remastered, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and Spider-Man 2. All of those games are on Steam, and all of them except Spider-Man 2 are great ports. Spider-Man 3 just entered production, but Sony is no longer apparently making games for PC. Now, the reason I say apparently is because the only person who's reported on this is Jason Schreier, and we've heard nothing from Sony. Like, they've never addressed this, but clearly they just announced the complete edition of Ghost of Yotei, and when they did that for Ghost of Tsushima, that's when they announced the PC version. So if there was a PC version of Ghost of Yotei in the works, we probably would have heard about it this week. So it seems like those rumors are true. I think it's pretty whack to leave Spider-Man 3 out when you sold all 3 of the other games on Steam, and you're saying, yeah, if you want to finish the trilogy, go buy a PlayStation 5 or 6 if this, gets bumped to the PS6 generation. Like, that's pretty shady. It's on par with when Xbox bought Rise of the Tomb Raider exclusivity, the second game of a trilogy. Like, everyone hated that. And I feel like Sony's doing the exact same thing, just in a different way with the Spider-Man games. And like Wolverine is fine. That was never announced for PC. It doesn't seem like it takes place in the same universe as Spider-Man, but something just really rubs me the wrong way about Spider-Man 3 potentially never coming to PC.
Yeah, and maybe this will also piss off those emulator guys, and they'll figure out a way to get Spider-Man 3 running on their Steam machine or on their gaming PCs, because nothing spurs innovation more than someone who just wants to play something and is mad. And that is whack, because if you bought all 3, say you bought Miles Morales and Spider-Man 1 and 2 on Steam, are you really going to go out and buy a now $700 PS5 to just finish off that trilogy? No, I can see why people would be pissed off about that.
Yeah, and getting back to these Xbox games on PC, what I hope happens is that it inspires Xbox to just make the Xbox app for Linux. That would create a much easier situation for average users, people who don't want to go into the desktop mode and have to mess around with setting up Heroic Game Launcher. I understand that it's easy to do, but having official support from Xbox would go a long way. And ironically, a couple of years ago at this point, maybe 3 years ago, Ray and I got to go to this private lunch with other YouTubers where we got to talk to Phil Spencer. There was 5 other channels there at most, and we just got to ask him whatever we wanted. So I came ready. I asked him about save transferring with Steam. He brushed me off completely. He was like, oh yeah, Valve blocks that. And I was like, no, they don't. There's Xbox games that already transfer with Steam. You just seem to pick and choose which ones you activate it for. But I wasn't deterred. I asked him then, where's the Xbox app for Linux? We need that. I know you have the streaming set up, but the Xbox app for Linux will go a long way. There actually are a lot of Game Pass users who are on PC. Seems like a no-brainer. And he was like, yeah, I'll look into it. And he totally just rolled his eyes. So hopefully with Asha coming in and we're seeing all these changes that are in the positive direction, hopefully we start to see some action from her on getting the Xbox app on Linux, because that's a huge group of people who are segmented off for literally no reason. If this actually works and they get these games running, there's no excuse for Microsoft at that point. Just do it.
Yeah, I think the real play here is Game Pass. They're potentially opening themselves up to a ton more subscribers, because then you'd be able to use it on the Steam Deck, on your Steam machine through SteamOS. That's a whole new audience of people who would totally be down to sign up for PC Game Pass, because remember, even at that lower tier for PC games only, you still get access to day one games.
Yeah, the whole operation at Xbox with this stuff is really weird, because obviously their goal for the past few years was growing the user base of Game Pass as much as possible. So you'd think they would come up with a way to integrate it into Steam, because I don't know if you know this, but you know how EA and Ubisoft have EA Play and Ubisoft Plus, which are, Game Pass for their games?
Yeah.
You can log into those on Steam, and those games become free on the Steam store if you pay for it outside of Steam. So you'd think with Xbox trying to grow that user base, they'd come up with the same integration, because when I downloaded Halo Campaign Evolved, I have to log into my Xbox account. I get the save transferring with my Series X. I get the achievements. That's nice. But if you're already going to require people to log in, I think people would be even less pissed about it if they were able to log into Steam, link it with Xbox one time, not for every game, and also retain all those Game Pass games they already have. Because I'm happy to buy some games twice just to get them on Steam to make them easily playable, but not having to do that obviously would be much better. I would play the Xbox Game Pass games or the Xbox app games if I already owned them on Series X, and that would benefit Xbox because I'd use my Series X a lot more.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea, linking your Xbox account, and then you go to the store page for something like Campaign Evolved, and you have the option, do you want to buy it through Steam, or you click the Game Pass subscription thing, it bounces you out to the Xbox thing. And yeah, it must be an ego thing. I don't know. Xbox is adamant that they want people to use the PC app and the PC app only for Xbox. I don't really know, but yeah, I feel like there's an opportunity here, especially with Game Pass, because I've heard a lot of people being I wish that I could access Game Pass through SteamOS, through my Steam Deck. I wish I could do this. I wish I could do that. And Xbox is just kind of not making any moves on that front. I don't know what the beef is with Steam. I don't know like what the relationship is like. But yeah, there's something fishy going on there.
But I guess sticking on the same path where we're talking about other consoles helping out Steam hardware, a weird phenomenon that's happened since the Switch 2 came out, because it's such similar power to the Steam Deck, a lot of games that get ports to the Switch 2 then get a lot of optimization, stuff like Chronos The New Dawn, for example, and then suddenly a patch appears on Steam the next day that makes a game that couldn't run at all on the Steam Deck run and look pretty dang good because it just switches over the Switch 2's graphics preset. And now it's happened once again, thanks to Bethesda, who loves to abandon their games. They worked hard to port over Oblivion Remastered to the Switch 2, and everyone's sitting there like, I have a PlayStation 5, this game runs like ass and you guys abandoned it. Xbox players are like, this game runs like ass and you abandoned it. And of course, SteamOS and just regular Windows users are saying the same stuff. And Bethesda actually had to respond. They were like, yeah, we optimized this game for the Switch 2. We're investigating ways to port over those optimizations. What do you mean you're investigating it? You already did the work. Just port it over. Like, what are we doing? This is crazy.
It's a year since this game has launched. I think it was April 2025. And it's still broken in some ways. I was just talking to my friend who can't finish the main quest line because Maykar Cameron is like just disappears like in one of the last, like second to last quests. So they can't complete the main quest. Yeah, like
where is
he? She doesn't know. Like he's just not existent in the game anymore. So
so like, and I'm sure her last save is like 80 hours earlier.
Exactly. So it's either restart and do all the stuff again, or ultimately what she ended up choosing was not playing, not finishing the game, because she's like, well, I don't want to deal with this anymore. So you have people dealing with like broken quests, memory leaks, frame drops in the open world, and then I wake up to this Digital Foundry article the other day that's like, oh yeah, the Switch 2 version of this game looks better than the Series S version. And I'm like, this doesn't make any damn sense.
I didn't know that.
Because of DLSS. And I'm like, dude, because like the base version on the Series S is technically better than the base version of the Switch 2 version, but the upscaling is a lot better on Switch. So I'm like, dude, this is crazy. Like people are getting shafted and it's just not fair for people. And you would think that Bethesda would be looking at these numbers, like the retention numbers, right? Because there was a massive fallout from people who were excited to buy the game or relive the nostalgia, relive their childhood, whatever, and then they just bounced off after like 10 hours. You would think that you would want them to come back. You want them to give them a reason to come back, any reason, even if it's just like performance fixes. But no. But so yeah, lots of sore feelings about the Switch 2 version of Oblivion Remastered, especially from me, who I was a big fan of the original Oblivion. I was a big fan of it when it was remastered. I played through it despite all of its faults. So yeah, not too happy on this run.
Yeah, this really brings me back to Cheesegate during the PS3 era, and essentially what that was is in Skyrim on PS3, when you would drop anything out of your inventory, which most of the time was wheels of cheese, it would stay in your RAM forever. It would never clear out of the map. So like as you played through the game and dropped more cheese, it would slow the game down. And just like your friend, there's no way to fix that, right? You'd have to restart the game and just be extra sure that you're not dropping anything on the ground. And then like we waited and waited for patches. They'd put some out and say it's fixed. It was never fixed. So if you play Skyrim on the PS3, it's still broken. Over a decade later, the PS5 version of Starfield just crashes relentlessly, and Fallout 4 doesn't run very well on the PS5 or PS4. They could get away with this stuff back in the day because they were the only ones making games of that style, like the big, massive open worlds with tons of interlocking stories and stuff. Mm-hmm. But since they take decades to make games now, they've not only like gotten more contemporary people that are making the same stuff, but they've been kind of lapped by other developers. So hopefully Asha gets in there, says, get to work, figure out how to fix your damn engine, or you're going to be stuck using Unreal Engine 5 for the foreseeable future, guys.
Bro, like what was the plan here? They just dropped this game and then forgot about it? Like they had no plans to follow up and fix anything? This is crazy. Like, and then you have the protesters outside of Bethesda being like, we've been working so hard on bringing you great games like the freaking fishing mini game and Fallout 76 and like the stuff like that. I'm like, no, I could see why there's a disconnect between gamers who are like, I'm fed up with this shit. Like, you're giving me unfinished games. I don't have sympathy for you. And then these developers acting confused, like, why do we not have a job anymore? This doesn't make sense. I'm like, I understand that it sucks losing your job, and I'm sympathetic to that. But like, I understand why players are frustrated with the stuff that we've been getting for the past like decade. Like, Skyrim was simultaneously the best and worst thing to happen to Bethesda, because it was like, we had this mega hit of a game that we can re-release until the end of time, but that's all we're gonna do. Like, we're just gonna sit back on our laurels and not really be hungry and not really push the genre forward. We're gonna take years to develop games, and by the time they come out, some of the mechanics are gonna be a little bit outdated. People's tastes are gonna have changed. Like, it's just a mess. Like, I really hope that they get it together with Elder Scrolls 6. I'm glad that Asha is kind of getting on them, and I'm glad that she's drumming up excitement for this live playthrough that she was talking about. Still kind of funny that she showed up and there was like a giant rat and like all these protests going on. But like, we're closer than ever. We're closer than ever to getting Elder Scrolls 6, and like, I'm supposed to be mad about that? Hell no.
Yeah, dude, you just reminded me, they do this shit all the time. With Fallout 4 on Steam Deck, when they released the update that coincided with the TV show, they were like, yeah, we got it verified for Steam Deck. There's some optimizations. What they did was block the launcher from loading, so you were stuck with whatever settings they picked, which were like the lowest of the low, which that game can run at basically ultra on the Steam Deck just fine. And they had the worst form of VSync enabled imaginable that caused double frames. So like, when you'd move the camera, you'd see 2 of every frame and they'd be like smeared. And then there's another issue where when you open up the keyboard, it crashes the game on SteamOS. This has been in it for 3 years, maybe even 4 years, and I forgot all about it. I just assumed they fixed it. My brother calls me the other day. He's like, I'm starting a new playthrough of Fallout 4 on my Ally X running SteamOS. Every time I try to type in my character name, the game crashes. And I'm like, I have to walk it. Dude, my brother had to connect to Steam Link on his phone and then type in his name on his phone, because Steam Link's keyboard works, but the built-in one doesn't. And name his character, and then he could start the game without it crashing to the desktop. It's insane.
What a mess. Do you remember what happened with the anniversary edition, like the anniversary bundle for Fallout, all those games, and how universally it was panned for just being a hot mess out the gate, even compared to versions of the game that were way older than it? Like, this doesn't make any damn sense. And I'm rooting for them, because everyone has a soft spot in their heart for Bethesda. For me, like, I was just spending hours upon hours until early in the morning, like 2-3 a.m., exploring the world of Oblivion and like getting lost in that quest line and like everything that Bethesda represents, adventure and just like the possibilities, the sheer number of possibilities. So I'm rooting for them, but god damn it, like they become a meme at this point.
I just don't understand what the like mentality is over there. Like, how are you satisfied releasing games in this state and they have so many employees? What are they all doing? You'd think someone would just sit down at their desk and do these basic fixes that it takes to fix a lot of these problems, right? And then they treat every patch like it's a momentous occasion. And it's like, bro, all we're asking for is for the game not to crash. Or like, all we're asking for is for the launcher that ships with the PC version. You guys are patting yourselves on the back, and we've been waiting for it for a year. Like, get it together.
Yeah, clearly someone at Bethesda was super excited about the Switch 2. So they were like, let's put all of our resources and energy into the Switch 2 version of Oblivion Remastered. But is it, when it comes to Oblivion Remastered, is it really their fault because it's Virtuous, right? Or Virtuoso?
Yeah.
They outsource that a little bit. Virtuo, yeah. So I don't, but even that's still kind of weird. Like, this whole practice of these IP that historically belong in house being outsourced. Halo Studios does it. You know, like a lot of stuff was outsourced for Campaign Evolved, and we see them cutting corners a lot. You know, with using the Reach engine and recycling old animations. So it's a broader problem in the industry, especially when expectations are so high and you got to ship a product like right now versus delaying it again. So I understand, but it's also bullshit at the same time.
Dude, the remakes of the the funniest thing because it's a remake. You could take literally as long as you want to finish it. No one's like waiting, you know? Like it's a remake. We could just play the old game. You could take 6 years to make the remake of Oblivion. You could take even longer to do the Halo one, but they're like, no, we're making this shit in 40 days, guys. Get it finished as much as you can. We're throwing it out there for $50. And guess what? We're walking away after that first release and it's going to stay in whatever state we release it in. So you better do your best work. It's like, no one cares. We'll wait longer, dude. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you in this one. I can already tell this is going to be a long video, so if you stuck around till the end, huge shout out to you. Anyway, as always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.